Hi everyone, and welcome back to Tropical Gloss. So the nights are drawing in, the temperatures at night are dropping, the sun is lower in the sky, and there's less daylight hours available. However, the daytime temperature is still pretty warm. So, do I need to worry about my tropical plants in my tropical garden in the UK? Well, the simple answer is no, I don't really need to worry. The reason being, the soil is still very warm and the daytime temperatures are also warm. So even though the actual leaf growth of plants might be slowing down, the root growth and root establishment is growing really well. So we're going to have a look around the garden now and we're going to look at some plants which are definitely showing the signs of autumn and whether I need to bring them in or not. We're also going to look at some of the plants I have in my garden that are also the indicators of autumn for me. So stick around and let's have a look. So one of the first indicator plants I have in the garden is my Rhus typhina tree. Now this goes a beautiful shade and you can just see it at the top of the leaves there. It's starting to turn, the leaves go yellow to red and then eventually fall off. And this normally happens when the nighttime temperatures get too low for it to produce energy to push out new leaves. The Aurelia relata is also a fantastic indicator. This goes a magnificent shade of yellow with reds in it. It really turns into a beautiful tree in autumn. It is deciduous, so eventually the leaves will drop off and there won't be any leaves to see in winter. So here's an example of a leaf that is showing signs of autumn and a few leaves which are also turning. So it's got a little bit of yellow into the leaves. It's not growing as fast as it was. This growing point is slowing right down. However, this plant will go dormant in autumn. So what will happen is the temperature will drop so low that the leaves will just stop pushing out and eventually they will fall off and I'll be left with this stem. So dormancy is a really important part of gardening or your tropical plants. We need them to have a dormant period because that is what they would do in the wild. So a dormant period, let the leaves drop off and then I'll put it in the greenhouse. Now what I don't want to do is I don't want this to have any frost on it. So frost is dangerous to the cell structure of plants and some plants can cope with it really well and some plants can't. So this plant I know cannot take frost, so this will go in the greenhouse once it starts to go dormant. This is an ideal time to transplant plants, especially plants like bamboos and palm trees, etc. The reason being, throughout the winter period these plants will still grow their rhizome or their roots. So at this particular time of year, because we've had no deep freezes, no prolonged frosts, the ground is very warm. So even though the nighttime temperatures drop down, it's not enough to penetrate deeply into the soil, which really helps plants establish their roots at this time of year. Plus the added moisture of the autumn rainfall will also assist. Since I got the Berinda, I've been meaning to do some changes in this bed, and autumn is upon us. Now is an ideal time to do it. So let's have a look at this bed. So if you can recall, in this bed there was some Philostachys Sulcata spectabilis, but I really wanted to put the Berinda in here. Now autumn is upon us, it's an ideal time to move it. So the Berinda was originally behind the ensete, underneath the banana leaves, completely hidden from view. So I knew that at some stage I would have to move the bananas to allow this Berinda to establish, but it would still be hidden from view. So I really wanted to get these fantastic blue canes to become evident or visible. So because the temperatures are ideal for transplanting plants, This was a really easy plant to dig up because it wasn't established, it was only put in April. So we managed to get that up, no problem at all. Yeah, the Spectabilis was a little bit more tricky to dig up than the Berinda because of its runners, and it is a running bamboo, Philostachys. So there was lots of runners. It had taken up a big area here, which was what it was going to do, I knew that, but it will quickly outgrow this area. So I placed the Philostachys in this upcycled filing cabinet. Now obviously it's not an ideal solution, but it does constrain the roots, adds a little bit of height, and I've got this fantastic bamboo screen starting to develop here. So a lot of the herbaceous growth in this section will die down throughout winter and come back next spring. One that is an interesting test is this Strobilanthes mastersii, because it's untested in my garden, so I'm going to leave this one out. I do have a backup plant, but we'll see how this one survives winter. There's lots of other herbaceous stuff in here, like Decnasia. There's also this crazy non-flowering Brugmansia. That is going to... Well, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this yet. I might just cut it right back down and see what happens next year. The cannas will obviously die down, the persicarias will die down. Allegedly, this Solanum lacinatum is meant to be potentially evergreen, but it's untested in my garden, so we shall see what the frost does to it. Of course, Trachycarpus are bone hardy. The Enset we've talked about, that's going to need to be overwintered, and so are the Musabasdew, but nothing is going to happen until the first frosts for these. But the Colocasia pink chinas, and of which I have many in the garden, or many clumps, these are bone hardy. A little bit of mulch over winter and that will suffice. Other herbaceous growth, brunneras, etc., ferns, Japanese forest grass there, they all come back year after year with a good mulch. So I don't need to dig them up, I don't need to put them in the greenhouse. In fact, there's very little that is actually coming into the greenhouse this year. These Colocasia black sapphire geckos are not hardy, so these will be potted up. So I hope this video has helped you a little bit to just not panic so much about your tropical plants. Understand that sometimes leaving them out is probably the best thing you can do until it's time to bring in. And don't be in a rush to bring anything into the greenhouse or into the house until you absolutely have to, because everything does better outside.